Okay. Days of the new month of Elul. Ani l'daidi b'daidi li. It's all about our avodah down here below with provoking Hashem. Initially, the creation in all of us happened, but it's called b'chesed chinum, free chesed, unfettered kindness, God's kindness. That's chaste Hashem. But this chaste Hashem, as we're going to learn as we turn inside the Tanya, his chesed could not exist as an unbounded effusion of light, because if it were unbounded, there would be no bounded, limited things. And the creation is all about minutia and multiplicity. So let's go. We'll start every day with our Yom Yom first before we dive into the Tanya. So today is the second of Elul. Bnei Yisrael, the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, the children of Israel are called Eretz Chafetz. Eretz Chafetz is the land that Hashem has chosen. It also means that we have something very valuable within us that he has planted within us. What is that? We possess numerous precious articles. We are precious to Hashem because he created us with a preciousness within us. We have precious articles in the love and fear of Hashem. These are the precious articles that the Nefesh Elokis comes into the body with, a godly love and fear of Hashem. And that expresses itself in fine character traits. Now, bringing these traits to the surface depends entirely upon the individual stimulating them, as we will learn in the Tanya, and have learned in the Tanya, but we'll learn it from different angles, and therefore, I sometimes look at the Tanya as analogous to a raw jewel. You take a diamond from the earth. First, you have to clean the dirt away, and then you start cutting facets. And the more facets that are done in the artful way, the more brilliance comes out. So we have the same topic often in Tanya and in Chassidus. You can boil it down to maybe a dozen topics, but each one of them is cutting a different facet, a different perception, which causes it to shine. And when it shines, it illuminates us in ways that hadn't been illuminated us before. So that's the avoida of bringing these character traits to the surface, depending entirely on us. It is clear that throughout the earth are well springs of living water. The difference between them is only that some are near to the surface, others far. Now, this pertains to our nature. Some of us, our godly soul is more naturally revealed, and some we have to dig deeper for. But it's there. And therefore, everything depends on the well digger and on the strength of his patience and perseverance. Now, since Ratzon, will, is the driver and is a superior faculty, will issues decrees. Ratzon HaMelech, right? The will of the king. Dvar HaMelech Sholton. The will of the king expresses itself in the word of the king, and the word of the king is what rules, what dominates. So the will is the source of the issuing of the decree, which rules over all the other faculties. Ein dover omed lifnei haratzon. That's what Chazal said. There's nothing that stands in the way of will. Of course, one has to learn how to activate the will sometimes. It's not always naturally coming, not always naturally flowing. But will is the compelling factor. It compels all the other faculties to act according to its orders. It follows that the essential avodah, as I just said, is to arouse one's will. That's the ratzon. To arouse one's will to exercise what it's designed to do, its effect, both upon the person himself, the effect of your will on you and your own self-integration and self-expression, and upon others and their integration of God's will. That's today's Hayom Yom, which is like spot on to today's Tanya. Often, as I said, sometimes it's often very apparent how the Yom Yom relates to the day, and oftentimes it's not, but today it is. All right, Lessons in Tanya, Volume 4, in the little version, if you have it, the Lessons in Tanya on page 171, middle of the page. And in Likutei Amorim, It's on the top of page Kuf Tes Vav, opposite page 228. Excuse me. Okay, we're exploring the pasuk Haste Hashem, the mimer, the saying, Haste Hashem Kilei Samanu. The kindnesses of Hashem, they don't stop. However, the Alter Rebbe points on a little grammatical nuance here. If it were to say they don't stop, it should have said Le Tomu. They don't stop. It says Le Tomanu. We don't stop. And I say that's the whole point of the avodah. All the effusions that come from Hashem after he decided to create and puts everything in motion are all, as the Rebbe told us, it's all up to us, Le Tomanu, to bring the effusions of godliness into the world, and more importantly, to bring about the revelation of godliness in the world, which is buried in the crust of the clippers, the crust of the tzimtzum, the contractions, to reveal it. So, kindness of Hashem is as our kindness is an effusion from oneself unto others. The opposite of kindness is the gevura, holding back. And the creation and all of reality is a model of the interplay of chesed and gevura. Giving too much overwhelms. Holding back, there's no life. There has to be a balance so that the container in all of the universe is a container to Hashem's light. And we particularly are containers of the godly soul, which we just learned about. But the godly soul is enfolded, embedded in an animal soul, which is a limiting factor. And so there has to be this dance of the proper balance between chesed and gevura. And with that, I think we can start. Okay. Now, v'hine lefisha hamitzvahs, top of page Tesvav. V'hine lefisha hamitzvahs, since the mitzvahs nitnu lonu are given to us, al yidei hislapshus b'midas gevura, through their enclothement in the midah of gevura. Right? We have one big source of energy, but that source, and that we had a revelation, as he's told us at the end of yesterday's, of that source of energy at Mount Sinai. And what happened at Mount Sinai? All our souls flew out of our body. We literally died for a moment until he reinvested. It's too much. It's too much unadulterated elokus. It has to be limited. And that limitation is the midah of gevura. The tzimtzum and contraction of the ha'ora of the light. Lochen, therefore, reiv ha-mitzvahs, most of the mitzvahs, yesh lahen shir, mitzumtzum. They have a very specific measure. And he's going to give examples. The length of the tzitzis has to be yud beis goitlim, 12 thumbs. The tefillin have to be etzboim al etzboim, 2 fingers by 2 fingers, a square. Umeruba, he says, davke, and specifically square, not oblong. The halulav, dalet tvachim, the minimum lulav is 4 tvachim, which is 4 fist breadths. The hasukah, zayin tefachim, the minimal sukkah is 7 tefachim, which came in handy during the Holocaust, when people dug holes in the ground to fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah. The hashayfer, which we're blowing now every day, tefach, has to be minimally a fist breadth. The hamikvah, me'sah, the mikvah, 40 saw. The chen b'korbanos. When the offerings that were brought in the temple, yesh lahen shia mitzumtzum lizman, they had a particular limitation in terms of age. K'mei kavotzim b'nei shana, the sheep had to be 2 years old. V'oilim b'nei shtayim, and also the goats, v'porim, and then there's another shear for the cows. The point is, v'chein b'maaseh hatzedakah. Now, talking about what we do every day. Every day is involved in acts of kindness, extending ourselves to others. This is the major encapsulation that we mentioned 100 times, the major encapsulation of all the mitzvahs, which the sages have told us is ha-mitzvah. The mitzvah is called tzedakah. Why? Because tzedakah is coming out of ourselves to others, expressed in Ahavas Yisrael, expressed in Avos Reim, love of all human beings, and expressed, of course, in money. Us coming out of ourselves to give life to someone else, in which case we imitate God. Now, this is tzedakah is a general category of all the mitzvahs, which are extensions of ourselves in relation, how we relate to other things, and all of them are models of the fact that we are created in God's image, His image, Chasdei Hashem. He's the ultimate kindness giver, the ultimate and origin of all the mitzvahs. And even when it comes to tzedakah, we have a measure, right? It's a certain measure for an ordinary person, and more if you have more money to give. So, afshehu mehamudin, even though all of these mitzvahs are called pillars, sha'olam oimid aleim, upon which the world stands, right? And Gemilas Chasadim particularly, who could deceive, as is written, oilam chesed yabana, speaking, I said, particularly about Gemilas Chesed. There's the phrase of our sages, oilam chesed yabana. The world is built with kindness. And again, yes, I may be overemphasizing it, but maybe for myself. Kindness, extending oneself to others, being kind to yourself, extending yourself to understand what's best for yourself, and using your will to engage in what's best for health, integration, optimal functioning of yourself. That's a kindness that you do to yourself. And then the kindness that you do to others. The whole, as we said earlier, all of the platform of mitzvahs, which is mitzvah is the lashon of connection, savto v'chibur, connecting yourself with Hashem, is through extension to health of yourself and the health of everything around you. Chesed oilam yabana, it says the world is built with kindness. It's established with kindness. Nevertheless, there are limitations. I mean, we all know we're limited. Sometimes we get tired out and need to refresh ourselves. And there are limitations, as we said. God can't just manifest unlimited or Ein Sof, unlimited, infinite light, because the kalim, the vessels, we, the planets, even the upper worlds, can't contain that. World milashon hela, right? Concealment. There has to be some concealment. So afilahochi yesh lo shir katsov. So to kindness, there is a little cutout katsov, a particular measure, and that's gevura. As I said earlier, and I think when we were learning the Hayom Yom, these two things interplay together, chesed and gevura. Giving out, but cannot be unrestrained, restraint to hold back, but neither can there be unlimited restraint, because then there's no giving out. So it's a very nice choreography of two opposite movements. Chaimish lemitzvahs, and we're back to tzedakah. Tzedakah. Chaimish lemitzvahs, and you give a fifth of what you have of your money if you're doing it in a very special way, a very mufar, very chosen, a special way. Umasa lemida beinanis, and you give a tenth. That's the average that a person's supposed to give. In other words, it's kindness, but it's kindness with a measure. The measure meaning gevura, with some measure of restraint, some definition. Chesed Kael, as it says, Pirish, Chesed Kael Kol Hayom, the kindness of Kael. The name of God called K or Elohim is always associated with the quality of restraint. Chesed Kael Kol Hayom. And each and every day there is this restrained, shaped, packaged kind of kindness that's coming out in time. And that gevura, that simtsumim, that contracted kindness, is what creates worlds. Again, oilam milashon helam. And that's the upper worlds and the lower worlds. And what brings it forth, and this is the cornerstone of this particular piece, and this is the whole cornerstone of Ani v'doidi l'deidi li, the Chodesh Elul, al yedei yisadusa l'lasata. Through our arousal from Hashem initiates, right? The king comes into the field. The king, as we learned earlier, Malchus is another name for Shechina, the divine presence. In Chodesh Elul, the divine presence is more revealed. That's what, but revealed for the taking, that we should take it. and that we should come out into the field, into the domain of the Shekhinah, which is also Gan Eden is called the Shtada, the field. We should come out into the place where godliness is revealed, where the king is, and accept it. And that acceptance creates now a relationship where the king is now interested in even more revealed, right? Just like in a human relationship. The more that you love, the more love you get. It's just the way it works. So this is called an arousal from above. He mitzvahs tzedakah, and the arousal, this is called the arousal from below, which is in our discussion right now is embodied primarily in the mitzvah of tzedakah, the chesed and kindness, that people do one with another. This is the simple formula for hisgalus elokus, for revelation of godliness, which we call Gilui HaMashiach Tzidkenu. The revelation of Mashiach is through acts of kindness. No accident that the Rebbe emphasizes this over and over and over again. All the campaigns of reach out provoke a corresponding reverberation of the creation, bouncing back the light in a reflected way, which creates an even more deep light. Another topic in itself, which is explored, called the Or Choizer, the reflected or returning light. But we'll just put that aside for the moment. And since the world, and really all worlds, are built through God's limiting, tzimtzum, contracting, and measuring out, and we see the Chazal use this, and it's brought in Tanya a lot, a saying from the sages that from one world to another is a distance of 500 years. Whatever that means, people have claimed this. I don't know the source of the explanations, but there's distance. And it's measured in years, 100 years. And also between each firmament, there are distances which are expressed in the Kabbalah, the received knowledge that the Chachamim have gotten ultimately from God himself, about the distance between all the levels of the heavens. Beshit al Peshini, Have Alma. And we have a limitation in terms of time before Mashiach is revealed. Shnei alfei shina have Alma. That actually means Shit alpha, 6,000 years. The world exists in a state in three various particular groups of events and revelations before Mashiach is revealed. The first one is called the 2,000 years of confusion, Tohu Avoyu, all the stuff leading up to Noach, and then Avram, which begins 2,000 years of Torah, and then 2,000 years from the time of the closing of the Mishnah and the Gemara, 2,000 years, which are called Ikvasu de Mashiach, the heels of Mashiach, and finally the revelation of Mashiach, which of course can happen before its time also. But that's the normative path of history. Therefore, because it's all coming out in tzimtzum, in measure, and gevul, boundedness, nidin shiru mida gam kain lemitzvahs. There's also a measurement that's been given to the mitzvah of tzedakah, the chesed. So again, tzedakah is a chesed, but it's encompassed in the world in mitzvahs of limitation, 10 or more, or 1/10 or 1/5. But we're always, in all the other examples we gave before, chesed in a state of some type of gevurah. So we have the mitzvah of tzedakah v'chesed sheb'Torah, Kamela Shar mitzvah, just like all the mitzvahs of the Torah, is expressed in a bounded way. Oh, I'm sorry, that's today's Tanya. However, we'll learn tomorrow. Well, that's today's Tanya. Questions, comments? Take yourself off mute if you have something that you'd like us to share with us.
I have a comment about today's Chumash. That in
today's
the Rashi,
Chumash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the Rashi, it says, just like in Tanya here, we're talking about shiurim, how much money
Mm-hmm.
give to
Mm-hmm.
tzedakah. Here it says that Ein Yafa is one out of 40. Ein Ra'a is 1 out of 60, and Benonis is 1 out of 50.
Where in the Chumash?
Yeah.
So you'll tell us the answer tomorrow?
I don't know the answer, but it's
No,
just
not
different.
yet. Not
Like,
yet.
what's 150? That's Chumash? 150?
No, Chumash is a
1/5.
fifth. A fifth.
Oh, so what you give to the Levi is much less, is 1/50th. It's either 1/50th, 1/60th, or 1/70th. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, like you said, that they all connect.
It's sheer, but it raises an interesting question. Why those particular sheer and not? Yeah, okay. But yes, it's certainly an indication of the same topic. Everything in worlds, because world is Lashon Helam, is therefore measured in some degree of constriction. And the degree of constriction is enumerated in the mitzvahs. Yeah.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
So I'm a child of survivors, and
I'm sorry,
parents.
you're what?
I said I'm a child of survivors, and I saw how the community, the Frum community, was once very small, and how it, Baruch Hashem, blossomed. And this is like every group, every yeshiva, every Hasidic group, every group, it blossomed. And I always thought of it as they had so much unshakable faith to hold on after everything they went through, to hold on to the way of Torah. So, like, that was a reason that they were greatly blessed. But now, what we're learning now, I would also say that there was a tremendous kindness and a tremendous unity in that generation. I grew up with it.
Right.
A person would care for a friend more than a person would care for a family member.
Yeah.
People helped each other with down payments to buy a house. People helped each other. I don't know. When my brother became bar mitzvah, they didn't have money to pay for a caterer. Everybody brought something to the bar mitzvah. It was this lady, Mrs. Klocksfeld. She made 2 fancy cakes. Like, everybody brought homemade food to the bar mitzvah. That's how they made that bar mitzvah. And when we learn about the great light that is generated from this, that speaks to me as another merit that this generation had. They had nothing, and they were so unified together.
Mm-hmm.
In so many different ways. And that's how they, the tzedakah, that's how they built these yeshivas.
Chesed Olam Yibana. The world is built with kindness. Yeah, there are many. Do you know the Frierdiker Rebbe gave hundreds of thousands of dollars for the establishment of the Shiva Torah Vadas? Because
it didn't have to be his. It's so
right. It was God's, not mine. Yeah.
The Baba Rebbe gave to some out-of-town yeshiva that had a fire. Tells, he gave to Tells. He didn't have money himself, and he said, I'm giving now $400, and I'll raise another $400. You can come back in 6 months. He didn't have money for his own, but they had a fire, and he gave money. Yeah.
So let us imitate their ways.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it's I don't know. There is a sadness to this, that now when we are in a time of, for sure, much, much more than what we had then.
Okay.
We have
So you've just given us all a big so what, right? This class is called Tanya So What? And you've given us all instructions of what we're going to do after we hang up. We're all going to go out and increase in one way or another the acts of kindness to ourselves, the acts of kindness to other, because we've learned very clearly that this is the pathway. It's up to us, L'bias Mashiach Tzidkenu, to bring forth the Mashiach.
Rosa, I just want to point out that there's so much tzedakah giving today, more than ever before. like by individuals. You see the campaigns, you see, like you could see it online, how much
Right.
tzedakah being. It's not just like being nostalgic about the past that people are today are so selfish. It's not true at all. It's
No,
so,
I don't think she was just being nostalgic. I think she was.
I think
Yeah.
what's different is the community. Like people now are more. Everybody now that families grew. And you could have 75 family members of your own. The people got a little bit into their own.
Okay. So let's
So
take
we
it as a
want to
positive.
revive that, that there are those who don't have family, there are those who are lonely that we could reach out to. Miriam Swerdlove, she's a heroine, but does everybody else I'm just saying, not everybody, but I'm just saying in general, there are those who their homes are still open to a great extent, and to open our home and heart to one individual, but in a personal level. I know that there's organizations and that people are, people write checks, and that's not so easy either, but just be a little more unity. I happen to love Chabad Passaic for that, by the way.
Okay. So then we meet again tomorrow. We'll continue this conversation. We'll see you guys. Thank you.
Yom Tov.
Bye-bye.